Hey, I'm so glad you were able to make it. This is story time with me, Scott, and today we're going to be reading a little bit of a spooky story. So if you don't like spooky stories, this probably isn't the video for you. But if you do, and you're ready for it, then let's jump right into it. This one's called Stephen. Stephen and 4 Little Suicides. There once was a man named Stephen Ross, and he built big buildings, so big everyone would go, "Wow, that's a big building." And in 2009, he started what would be his magnum opus, Hudson Yards in New York City. He spent $25 billion creating massive office and residential buildings in Hudson Yards. Even though only wealthy people would live in these buildings, Stephen wanted to see poor people hang out and admire Hudson Yards. You know, they may not be allowed in most of the buildings, but they sure could look at them and aspire to be like him one day. So he decided to create something magical to attract the poor people to the area, and hopefully they would spend lots of money that they don't have at the shopping mall nearby. He spent $200 million building this magical thing, and it would be called the Vessel. It would be a 15-story high set of staircases made of steel and clad in copper. In his words, it would be the Eiffel Tower of New York City, the Rockefeller Christmas tree, except it would be up 365 days a year. And people could walk on the vessel and go up and down, and all around. It would, as the designer of the vessel, Heatherwick, claimed, bring people together. And it was magical. They had an opening ceremony with the great Senator Chuck Schumer, and everyone loved it. Except the people who didn't. They were mean, bitter people, otherwise known as architecture critics, who said the vessel and all of Hudson Yards was ugly, disjointed, and just a billionaire's fantasy land subsidized with taxpayer money. They also said the vessel wasn't accessible for people in wheelchairs because it's a bunch of staircases, and the elevator for people with disabilities only went to 3 of the 80 levels of the vessel, and only 1 if it was busy. It didn't allow for travel around the top layer if you were in a wheelchair, and the elevator only operated on one side of the vessel. And there were other people who said, in quite a cynical spin on the classic, "If you build it, they will come," they said, "If you build it high, people will jump." Stephen had given so much, and these people were so ungrateful. Couldn't they see how magical it was? Some people certainly saw the beauty. It became a popular spot to take a selfie or a photo for Instagram, trying to capture a little bit of the magic in a photo. Impossible, yet attempts were made, but the joyful celebration didn't last long. On February 1st, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. on Saturday, a 19-year-old jumped to their death from the vessel. Down, down, down. Onlookers were stunned. Friends were surprised. One said, and I quote, "Of anyone from our grade, I wouldn't have expected it to be him." I hope she gives a call to whoever she expected it to be. But surely it was a freak accident. The vessel reopened on Monday, 2 days later, and people were making the climb once again. Stephen made no changes, but condolences were certainly sent, and again the vessel provided joy to the people who came and went they did. They went up and down, and all around. A letter came from the Manhattan Community Board on March 10th, 2020, advising that higher barriers be put on the vessel to avoid another suicide. At the moment, the barriers were waist high, making it accessible to jump from the top. There was no response to this letter. And people continued and went up and down, and all around, until December 22nd, 2020. Tuesday morning, a 24-year-old woman jumped off the vessel, and she went down, down, down. She died upon impact, and people were stunned again, and the community board advised that a higher barrier be built again. There was no response from Stephen again. The vessel reopened again, and people continued and went up and down, and all around. Until January 11th, a 21-year-old jumped off the vessel, down, down, down. He died upon impact, and people were stunned again, and the community board advised that a higher barrier be built again. But Stephen finally did something. The vessel closed indefinitely, and changes were made. The vessel was reopened on May 28th, with new measures in place. You couldn't climb the steps unless you had a buddy, because nobody with a buddy kills themselves, and security was increased and was trained to look for behaviors that may indicate suicidal tendencies, like looking real sad and depressed, And you had to pay $10 to enter the vessel, because as we all know, rich people or people with an extra $10 don't kill themselves. And there were signs that told you to, I guess, not kill yourself, because we've all been there, right? You're about to kill yourself, and then you see a sign that says, hey, don't do that. And you go, what? I never thought of that. And finally, they put up physical barriers, which research shows can eliminate suicides at a location. The vessel was enjoyed, and nobody else killed themselves ever again. Happily ever after. It's a nice ending to the story, wasn't it? What's that? You said it's called Stephen and the 4 Little Suicides, not Stephen and the 3 Little Suicides, and I only mentioned 3? Ooh, well, this is quite embarrassing. You seem to have caught me. I changed the ending. I didn't like the ending the original author had made, and I made one that was a little more optimistic, I think, or a little more nice. But I suppose if you want the real story? Are you sure? Okay. Don't say I didn't warn you. After the 3rd suicide, they didn't put up physical barriers. I lied. Stephen did the other stuff though, but for some reason, they didn't put up the barriers. So the vessel reopened again, and people climbed and went up and down, and all around. And then on July 29th, a 14-year-old boy went with his family on the vessel. A security guard said he was laughing with his younger sister running on the vessel. When they got to the 8th level, the highest level of the vessel, he jumped off the side and went down, down, down. He died. He had attempted suicide before, but his family was still shocked. And the guards thought he was a happy little boy because sometimes you can't tell when somebody is suicidal. The vessel closed again and remains closed to this day. After the death of the boy, Stephen Ross said, "We thought we did everything that would really prevent this. It's hard to really fathom how something like that could happen. But I feel terrible for the family." And that is the full story of Stephen and the 4 Little Suicides. Wasn't my ending nicer? I'm not saying that Stephen is 100% responsible for the suicide of that 14-year-old. I mean, certainly with suicide, there are so many things that can go into it. But I have seen research that shows that suicides among youth is often impulsive. So if we're designing a structure like an observation point or the vessel, for example, that is going to be accessible to youth, I do think that we have to be cautious in the design. This isn't a perfect analogy, but imagine if I had a gun that was fully loaded and I didn't put the safety on, and I left it on the street, and I advertised that it was there, and I said, "Hey, I just want you to go and look at it. It's beautiful. It's a really beautiful gun. Don't touch it. Actually, you can touch it, but don't use it, obviously." And then somebody went up and they killed themselves with it. And then other people said, "Hey, you should put that gun in a glass box. That way people can still admire it, but you're going to not allow them to use it to kill themselves." And then I said no. And then it happened again. Somebody kills themselves with it. And then I don't do the box again. And again, I think it's irresponsible to not put that box on the gun in that context. especially when we have the solution. You put the gun in the box, you put the barriers on the vessel. You know, to this day, people still take selfies with the vessel. You can't climb up it, but you can, walk around it and take a picture with it. And I wonder if they ever think about why it may be closed. I don't know if they know its history, and I don't know if they would even care. I think they just think it's pretty and fun. I mean, people have killed themselves off the Empire State Building and the Eiffel Tower, but those buildings are still viewed as enchanting and romanticized. But the thing is, in those places, they added nets and higher barriers after people killed themselves. So when Steven says he views the vessel as the Eiffel Tower of New York City, it's weird to me that he forgot about the nets. I think a lot about this question. Would those 4 people be alive today if the vessel had higher barriers? And the honest answer is I don't know. But it's not a definitive no either. And I think that's what pains me the most.
Hi there, my name is Stephen Ross, CEO of the Related Companies. I just wanted to make a statement on this cute little video that implies that some responsibility for the suicide of a 14-year-old is on my shoulders. I shouldn't have to say it, but that is just, we all know it's silly. We took precautions after the 3rd suicide and did everything that we thought we could to prevent this. It's just a tragedy. And that's all it is. Do we blame the New York City subway system for the suicidal week that happens there? Should they be blamed for not putting up retractable barriers to stop people from jumping in front of the train? No, it's not feasible. It's so absurd. What, are we going to put barriers on every roof? It's honestly infantilizing society. And also, the guy in this video compares a piece of art to a gun. It is so ridiculous. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. And the solution, put the gun in a lockbox. What? Then what is the point of even having the gun? You want physical barriers, then the vessel is no longer the vessel. The whole point is that you feel the wind and the openness of the structure. You don't feel caged in, you don't feel trapped. And you have a beautiful, unencumbered view. And sure, will someone look at that piece of art, great art, and see only a gun? I mean, even then, the barriers would be a band-aid, and we need real, substantive change. You can blame individuals all you want. You can blame me, the parents, onlookers, the kid. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's a systems level issue, and we need to invest in it in a systems level way. We need to invest in mental health and stuff like that. And you may say tax people like me higher to pay for those things. And to that I say, it's a very complicated question too. I mean, that's for people smarter than me to debate and talk about tax incentives and things along that nature. It's all complicated and messy, right? And, we're all working through this hardship together. But the important thing to make very clear is that it's not my fault or any individual's fault that 14-year-old committed suicide. I know people don't want to hear this, but he may have just done it elsewhere. The vessel is not a gun. It's a piece of art. And sometimes art reveals things about ourselves that we'd rather hide from. We thought we did everything we could to prevent this. And even after the 3rd time it happened, it's really hard to fathom how something like this could happen. But, I feel really terrible for the family.